Hello, welcome back to another episode of Somewhere Between a film and TV podcast. We're your host. I am Daniel Parr.
And I'm Erwin.
And number one, thank you so much for listening and watching. Number two, what are they going to do?
They're going to like, comment, and subscribe.
Please do. Erwin, everything we review will always have full spoilers. Always. Yeah. Even if this movie's from 1922, technically. But they remade it. Who knows? You might not have seen it. But what are we reviewing?
Nosferatu,
Robert Eggers, the 2024 adaptation, not the Werner Herzog one, not the F.W. Murnau one, the new one. And with this movie, I'm going to ask you a question, but before we do all that, let me ask you, what is this movie about?
It's about... Oh, wow, I'm blanking.
It's about yearning.
Literally, it's all about yearning. This one vampire...
Yeah.
Is it Dracula, you would say?
I will explain that in a second. Technically, yes. But
right? But I guess it's like set in like the early 1900s.
1830s.
Oh, 1830s it said, yeah. 1800s. So early 1800s. I was like, dang, I was like, that's so bad.
1910s?
I mean, that's so old,
No,
dude.
this is during the plague.
But the early 1800s.
Yeah.
And basically this one woman gets... You know, it's a lot of things where it's like a lot of like demon-esque type of things.
Yeah.
But basically she gets possessed and by this, we'll say vampire.
Essentially, I mean, yes. 100% a vampire.
And
that is true.
Some could say it's a romance movie too.
You would argue that this is definitely... I saw some of the reactions to this in terms of what people were expecting and what this movie actually is. Yet again, marketing has fooled some people.
Yeah.
But... knowing this story, I want to explain all of it. I really do. Mm-hmm. But I have to ask you a question before we get into all of that. With this movie, did you love it? Did you hate it? Or are you somewhere between?
I'm somewhere between loving this movie or loving this movie.
Or like loving it a lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm yearning.
You're to what? Watch it again?
Yeah, I guess so. Even though I could just watch it today, but
yeah, I mean, you literally could. Although there's a reason why I want to see it again. It's the same reason I'm always complaining about. People just don't know how to act at movie theaters, no matter where I go. I know.
You're the only one getting it.
I don't understand because we even saw it the same day. I think I just saw it like 30 minutes and a different showtime than you did.
Yeah, that's true. I think I saw like an hour after you.
Yeah, but I loved it. I loved it a lot. I didn't love
Actually, I went to the Mueller one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I have no idea. Oh, I like that. I like that.
That
place.
one's nice.
Yeah.
The only thing is though, see this movie when it's completely dark. The Mueller one, I didn't know they had lights on the bottom.
Yeah.
And so it kind of like ruined.
Yeah.
But I might go to Cinemark or something where it's just complete darkness.
No, actually, I also feel my experience wasn't ideal in terms of watching this because I just heard so many people shuffling around. This is kind of a perfect movie to watch on a Wednesday at 11 a.m.
Wednesday at 11 a.m.
Hopefully no one else is around you. But no, I mean, technically it is a perfect movie to watch at night.
Yes.
But I love this so much. I thought this was, of course, we're about to do one of our best movies of the years, like lists, things. It's going to be there. This movie's incredible.
Oh, yes.
On every single level, it works.
Thoughts on the director?
Robert Eggers is incredible. I don't think I've ever not given one of his movies 5 stars.
Yeah. Ever since The Witch. I think that's definitely one of those movies that's cemented, at least for me, where I was like, wow, I love horror. Yeah. This is what I would define to people where it's like, this is the type of horror movies that I enjoy.
Yeah, you keep saying that you don't love horror movies, and yet you can go through our reviews, and we have so many positive horror movie reviews.
Well, yeah, because like so many this year, or like, not even just this year, but like the past couple of years, they've just gotten better.
Yeah.
And I think because they leaned away a lot just from,
the jump
scares and like big noises out of nowhere.
This one has a couple that I was kind of surprised that, like, because there's one in like the first minute that I was like really surprised by. But let's get into the specifics here. What did you love about this?
What I loved about, honestly, not just from this movie. Sorry that my rooster's going crazy. Wait, my rooster's going crazy.
What else do they call him?
But I think just this director alone, every single one of his movies, it just looks so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I already knew that just based off the trailer too.
Oh, just the way it would look. Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, this is going to be something I'm going to be watching.
Yeah.
Once a year in October. But the things that I love about this movie are for sure the actors in this movie, The one person that stood out to me besides, I mean,
What, Bill Skarsgård?
Bill Skarsgård,
Yeah.
but was Lily Rose Depp.
Yeah, who's...
I did not, because the only thing I've seen her in is like 1 or 2 episodes from the show that she was in,
The Idol, which isn't the best thing in the world.
I've heard so many things about it, but even then, after watching the first 2 episodes, I was not compelled to keep watching.
I mean, my whole thing with that was like the first episode, I was just like, I don't need to see the rest of this.
I just didn't want to see it. But I didn't really see much of her. But in this one, I was shocked by her performance in this. She did a great job in just showcasing her character and like the struggles she was going through of just trying to figure out how to get through like this curse that she has within her. And she was great. And Nicholas Hoult as well. I mean, he does a great job in a lot of things. Yeah,
great in everything he's been in. And he's been in a lot this year alone from my memory.
Also, like the environment as well, especially whenever Count Orlok shows up to what city are they in?
They are London, right?
London, I guess.
Yeah.
And whenever he actually shows up and just showcasing like the Black Plague, and like how seeing like the other people in that town are suffering as much as like she was suffering too. Yeah. In a sense.
So I can really only second everything you said, but I want to get into more of like a couple of things that you were talking about with the way this is shot. This is, in terms of, you said Dracula kind of. So this is, I don't know if you're aware of this, but back in the 20s, they had an adaptation of Nosferatu that was kind of a loose adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. But then, whenever F.W. Murnau had made that, they had kind of attributed it to the fact that they were like, hey, dude, you just copied Dracula. This is Dracula. Yeah. And so they took him to court. He lost. They
sorry, just the way you presented that. He lost.
They ordered that every single copy of Nosferatu was destroyed.
Okay.
But they just kept bootlegging it over and over, way back in like the 20s. So
That's
it was
funny.
It's kind of interesting that the story of that movie is sort of like the figure of Nosferatu himself, and that this dude just sort of like keeps persisting on showing up, and that's sort of how he's introduced. At the very beginning is whenever she was like, he's my greatest shame. He's the person that like, cause she said that she was feeling lonely at the time, I believe. Yeah. And what I love about this is I really, really adore that one from 1922. I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I haven't seen it,
but it is phenomenal. And I mean, so
the
is
one
this
that
one.
was bootlegged.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was entirely shot in black and white. Yeah. There's some weird color stuff going on with it that they tried to dye to make it look different. But what I liked that this movie decided to homage about it is there's so many different scenes where it almost looks black and white because it's so desaturated, or there's this thing with shadow play where it'll be against a white backdrop. Yeah. There is a moment in this that I found astounding, and it's whenever Nicholas Holt's character initially shows up at the castle, and you see the carriage pull up slowly, and you can see the shadow of him. It's just a silhouette. It's all black, and it's phenomenal. It looks so beautiful.
Yeah, the way that the lighting they did in this movie was great as well. It's just like how to utilize certain lights to like just showcase the darkness behind like all the buildings, and then of course surrounding like Nosferatu as well.
Oh well, yeah.
And I love like the little subtle things, like the build up kind of in a way, but they showcase a lot of his hands.
Yes.
And in this movie as well. I don't know if it's supposed to like allude to something.
I think that, I mean, we'll get into like themes and stuff because this is one of those types of movies. If you want to get further into it, you can. If you want to appreciate it on a surface level of just a vampire movie, which alone, the fact that there's a good vampire movie, I feel like people forget. They're not amazing all the time. But in terms of, let's address the actual person, the, titled after Count Orlok or Nosferatu. What did you think of Bill Skarsgård in this movie?
He did a great job. He definitely turned, I think a lot of it came down to the prosthetics for sure. Yeah. Because I did not recognize him whatsoever. If I didn't know he was like Nosferatu, I would have been like, who's this guy?
The only way in which I could tell is they gave him Pennywise forehead again. And I was like, I can tell just because of that, basically.
No, I couldn't have noticed.
outside of that, I mean, he just kind of looks like a freaky old man. He is a freaky old man in all the senses of the word freaky. Because I don't know if you've seen all the memes about this movie, but
no, I haven't seen any. Was it thirst traps or anything? Of
no,
Nosferatu
not about
yet.
Nosferatu, but I've seen a lot of people calling him Freak Feratu.
No.
Okay,
I can see thirst traps of Nosferatu.
Yeah,
and I'm like, wow. And then I was funny because I was thinking, I was like, oh yeah, like he put so many boundaries and everything, and like he only cares about her and respects her only, but still kills people and kills children. I'm like, he's such a good guy.
They gave Terrifier 3 so much shit, but there's a scene in this where he just
just murders like
two children on screen.
Like, that freaked me out. I was like, oh my god.
But talking about this being freaky, this being scary, did you think going into it was going to be that kind of horror movie it was marketed as, or
no? I guess whenever it comes to horror movies, I never expect to just be scared. Type of thing. I just like to go and see how the director wants to showcase their movies. And majority of the times, though, based off of like his other movies as well, a lot of it's just built up anxiety for me. And especially when it came to this one in particular, a lot of it just came down to like, you knew, like, if some people just knew like who Nosferatu was, and like you knew like, okay, is this going to be some type of like let's say like monster movie, right? And so you're just kind of anticipating what's going to happen and like when it's going to happen too. And a lot of it came down to whenever the first interaction with Nicholas Holt's character in Nosferatu. And Nicholas Holt just keep waking up. Not knowing
initially
what
in the
was
castle,
happening. And that freaked me out because at the end, like, you're just feeling what the Nicholas Holt was feeling too, like what just happened. And you're just going through the motions as well. And then eventually you start to learn more and more about how Nosferatu is and what he's planning to do and all. And it just became
in
more
terms
and more...
of like unleashing the plague and like in terms of the way that this plays out, I am maybe I don't want to say too aware of the story, but in terms of like, I don't have any negatives with this movie. They're getting this.
I can't think of any negatives.
My only thing was I was like, I don't know if I've studied this story so much that I was like, of course I know like where this is going. That, which is fine. I mean, if you've even seen the Keanu Reeves, Gary Oldman Dracula, you've seen this story. There's the boat thing. And in my head, I was like, I kind of want to like see if I can cut this with watching that one boat vampire Dracula movie that came out.
Which one?
The Last Voyage of the Demeter from last year.
Didn't you say that one was good?
I've heard that it's good in like the campy way.
Oh, okay.
And in terms of just being like a kind of trashy monster movie, basically. And whenever they're on the boat, I was like, oh my god, what if you just like split the first half and then put that and then the rest of that? And I'm kind of curious how that would go.
Okay.
But with this, I knew that it was going to be romance based just off of like my knowledge of vampires generally speaking.
Yeah, most of the time that's how they usually are.
Yeah, they're so, I'm not even making a joke, they're lustful.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the fact that he's like, you have to say that you want me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah.
Can you do an impression of his voice?
Can I? I'm trying to remember how he sounded. He's like, oh, no, I feel like I'm doing a stereotypical vampire voice. I wouldn't have sucked your blood. That's not it. I was like, that's not how he sounds.
No, I saw a meme on TikTok that was like, is your make fur broken? Like, just like that.
Oh, I can't.
The voice is awesome. Although I had that like problem where I had to be like, what are you saying?
Dude, yeah, I gotta watch this movie again, but in subtitles.
I would very much like to see if I could go to a theater and get one of those closed caption machines.
Oh yeah,
because
like they have like those things.
For every single line with Count Orlok, I was like, dude. And then I like whenever he goes, I thought that this movie had some very funny moments in it. I'm just saying, I didn't know if
Willem Dafoe in this movie,
awesome,
amazing as always.
Whenever you hear his voice, I was like oh yes,
finally,
yeah. But the part where he goes, "We are neighbors," that was so funny. But
when Willem Dafoe goes, "Vampire," Nosferatu.
No, I told you
that was great.
Yeah, but in terms of the type of horror movie that this is, it's very much in the Gothic horror realm.
Yes.
And if you're not aware of what that is, there was a different movie that came out like a decade ago now that I think is actually severely underrated because people had different expectations for it than what it was, and that was Guillermo del Toro's Crimson Peak, which is actually very good.
Yeah,
and
I haven't seen that one.
I really like it. but you also, like, when that initially came out, it had an expectation versus what it was marketed as thing.
Oh, what was it?
It was marketed as kind of like how this was, a straightforward horror movie set in the, what do you call it? Just, I'm not gonna call it ancient times. That's not ancient. Not medieval either, but you know what I mean. Like that Gothic look to it. But the other thing is that I feel like this is marketed that same way, but then it was way more romance based than you kind of anticipated it to be. Yeah. Not that this is a full on romance. It's definitely not.
But I feel like if a romance was also in a horror movie.
Yeah.
And it works out well, that it feels more impactful than just being a straight horror movie as well. Yeah.
No, and I think that in terms of Count Orlok and Nicholas Holt's character in here, I think that the romance is actually really well done in terms of like how Nicholas Holt feels about Lily Rose Depp in the first place. There's a lot of really great dialogue here in terms of, there's one line, it's very old school romance feeling, like you would find it in a paperback book, which I mean, Bram Stoker's Dracula, of course, but the moment whenever she's like, I'm not clean or whatever, and then he's like, none of that matters, and then it's just the way they all deliver stuff and the way they all talk to each other. It's very much, Robert Eggers is so detail oriented about the time period that everything takes place in. And we haven't talked yet about, because we talked about like the way it's shot, but some of the production value here is like fucking crazy. What did you think about it?
I thought it was, I mean, just, it's the same way with his other movies as well. Like, I think about The Lighthouse.
Yes.
So for just being in one place the entire time, it felt so big as well. And being able to go from different locations like he did in Nosferatu definitely showcased a lot about the production as well.
This felt so grandiose to me in terms of just how big everything felt, because once Thomas...
Yeah, especially the castle that he was living in. Because at first, like, of course, when you see the castle from the outside, it doesn't look... I mean, it's huge, yes. But being inside it was something completely different.
I also like that he starts going through... I don't know what it is about castles and like... Because they remind me of the House of the Dragon season 2 plot when he was just like, I'm going insane. And he's like stuck in
I forgot about that.
But once he starts traveling like on his horse into like those dreams he's having where he walks into that village at night.
Yeah.
And they're having whatever tradition it is that they say that Orlok is mad about, basically.
Yeah.
And once it started getting to that point where I was like, okay, this movie feels really big. People talk about, oh, they don't make this kind of movie anymore. They don't make this kind of movie. It very much felt like they do make this kind of movie, and this is it.
Yeah.
It felt like, I don't want to say it felt like a 90s movie, but do you know what I mean? In that it felt like back when they made bigger movies that weren't just blockbusters, that were allowed to like be expansive and big in terms of their production value.
Oh, I think it's just, are you talking about like when studios would just give money to ideas more so than just
like, let's
franchises
say,
and like things that are already... I mean, this movie is a remake in a sense, or just being adapted again based on like people that people already know about.
Yeah.
So I can see that too, but I think it's just not a lot of people know about that kind of stuff nowadays. So
no, definitely not. But this felt like literally ink dripping to me because of how many shots looked almost like
straight from a painting.
Yeah,
it looks so beautiful.
There was one I wish wasn't in the trailer, but it is, and I get why it is. And it's the one, I mean, to be fair, this is like so great in how it's pulled off that it's different in the context of the movie. It is when the shadow of his hand
the context is amazing, because just the shot alone looks great, but the context of around it, so good.
And they keep on going, he's coming.
Dude, there's so many. He is coming.
Yeah, don't tell me that, because I know that this movie's sexually infused.
Oh, very. Whenever she starts moaning, and I was just like, at one point, it's like, is she hurting or is she liking this?
Have you heard?
That's why I was just like, Nosferatu's there's gonna be a thirst trap. Something.
Yeah, no, you haven't seen any of the memes that I'm talking about.
No.
He's like, you have to bounce on it freaky style. You don't know what I'm talking about.
Dude, what side of Twitter are you on? You have to bounce on it.
Freaky style. Yeah. Or with Willem Dafoe, whenever they're like, how do we vanquish the monster? He's like, bounce on it. Willem Dafoe's awesome in this.
Yes.
It's one of those.
Also, Aaron Taylor Johnson, basically being the, I guess you would say, like, the folk people. Not folk people, like, there's the town people there. And basically realizing that there is something bigger in this world than him.
He is the vessel for how people start to process that there's like something going on. And I see some people, like, if anybody has critiques of this movie, because I try and add that whenever we don't have any.
Yeah.
They think it's not scary. I disagree. I think this movie's unnerving. Different kind of scary.
Yes.
Is it like flat out like, ooh, I'm gonna have nightmares about it? No. But
I didn't think about the marketing aspect because I already knew. I was like, oh, Robert Eggers. I was like, okay, I'm in.
Yeah, no, we don't need to know anything else. Like,
yeah, then again, it's like whenever we go into movies, we try not to go in there with no expectation, like little to no expectations whatsoever, just because things like this happen as well. And I understand,
all the time,
like,
yeah, especially with him.
Who?
Like Robert Eggers, like the
I was
Northman.
like, there's a movie him.
No, not like even the Northmen suffered from this.
Oh, that's true. Northman was completely different from how it was marketed as well, and I love the Northman.
That movie's incredible.
But that's crazy because now, dang, I gotta text somebody and let them know. I'm like, hey, I just let you know it's not a straight horror movie. Just like the.
Oh, did they think that it was?
Or yeah, they would think it's a horror movie. It's like it's gonna be scary. And I was like, I didn't get really I didn't get scared or anything like that. Besides like a few moments where it was like, oh, I did not expect that.
Yeah.
But overall, it's definitely a romance movie. More, it's just like a blend of both.
I'm gonna argue about the romance thing as well because. I want to get into the themes of like what you think that this is about because it is essentially about a couple different things. One of them you just addressed. It's about the more old kind of folktale-y version of there's something bigger than you.
Yeah, especially when Nicholas Hoult arrives to the town area where Nosferatu is.
Yeah. And
you can see all these people freaking out, being scared. That one lady basically mentioned about the garlic as well, and it's just those little moments like that, and it just builds up a lot about Nosferatu. It's like being established for so long.
Yeah, I also like old school vampire lore. I know that we got all caught up in like the past couple decades about trying to subvert vampire lore, but there's nothing wrong with me. Like, there's nothing wrong with me.
There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah, not right now.
Oh. You literally said
the Grinch.
Freaky style. Bounce on it.
There's nothing wrong.
There's nothing wrong being freaky.
Yeah. But in terms of that, just like the representation of him and folklore of vampires, I really like all of that stuff. I don't think there's anything wrong with going back to that, basically.
Yeah, that's true.
But outside of that, also, I've heard some people complain that Aaron Taylor Johnson's not that great in this. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he did a great job.
Is he the standout? No, I think Lily Rose Depp is, actually.
Yes.
Who I want to apologize to. I saw her in something years ago. I think it was a Kevin Smith thing.
Oh, the one with... I don't know,
it was like
Canadian.
It was like Killer Sausages or something.
Killer Sausages.
She was very bad in it.
Yeah.
But I went into this with just a little bit of trepidation. I was like, if anything is going to be not great in this, it might be her. I was so wrong.
Yeah.
She's phenomenal. The way she communicates things with her body language. Like, there's a moment
body
where she's
language
literally
alone is amazing.
The moment where she's like having no control of her body and the faces she starts making. And then there's a scene that's going to be in this movie called The Scene. Whenever people say, oh, The Scene in Nosferatu, you probably know what I'm talking about.
No, what are you talking about?
It's The Scene.
Stop saying The Scene.
Describe the scene.
There's no witches in this.
No. The witch.
Oh, the witch. No, the North, man.
The lighthouse?
They went the North, man. No, there was lighthouse in the house.
There was a light in the house. But in which she starts like losing control of her body, and then Nicholas Holt's like, what is going on?
Oh,
and then she says,
but yes, that is true. That scene was something else. I definitely felt like my jaw dropped at that moment, just because it felt so, I guess it felt so, I don't know how to describe it. I felt so like a part of that scene with them, just because you start to feel the emotions of, especially with Nicholas Hoult, not under, like, for sure, like, he understands now what she's going through, but not how she's feeling too. Yeah. And so he's getting all these different types of reactions and like emotions towards him, and it just feels like he's also losing control and not knowing what to do the same way as she was as well.
Yeah. No, and there's that scene, his body language is so funny because he literally tries leaving the room, and then she like starts freaking out more. But there is something to be said about what this is about. What do you think that the overlying theme here is of this? Because I do think Robert Eggers movies all have that, and I feel like there's a few different things here.
There's a few things, but I would like to say my main thing was like this idea of being like clean.
Yeah, no, that's definitely part of it as well.
Because I think a lot of it, like throughout Lily Rose Depp's character, and it's just like back in old times as well, trying to be like pure. Mm-hmm. And because it was casually mentioned too, where she was talking about her childhood past with Nicholas Hoult, and like she casually mentioned about her dad, saying like nobody's gonna want you. Like finding her outside and everything like that too. Yeah. So
there's so much of it about like impurity and being clean, and this whole idea that she's trying to cover up something about her past, and like having this great shame of it. And then you realize Nicholas Holt's character is like, none of that matters to me, and that like he would do absolutely anything for her in a sense. And at the end of it, the way this movie ends, like the last shot is beautiful. It's kind of morbid, and I mean it's only gross in the sense that Count Orlok is gross.
He is really gross.
Yeah. There's an incredible moment with his body where let me explain. Not him when he's hanging loose when he's naked, but
when I saw his wee wee, I was like, oh yeah.
Finally
the part of the movie.
That's what I told you, where it's like when he rises out of his grave, you're like, oh, that's two things. Because you are erect, and that rises too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But, no, it's a moment when he's on the boat. It's an incredibly effective jump scare where this movie, the way it utilizes lighting, it entirely uses, from what I understand, it's shot with all, like, natural light.
Yeah,
and
I believe that.
The fire, there's a moment where I'm reminding myself of where Nicholas Holt's walking through this, I wouldn't call it a restaurant, it's like a little pub thing, and you can tell that it's basically lit by like all the fires and stuff around him. And what I'm talking about is this moment where they're on the boat and someone's holding it's either one of the like the fire torches or a lantern. I can't quite remember which one that it was, but they walk by and you see his body kind of turn. And then, of course, it's like it's so effective because it's just still holding there. And then he turns, and of course he's right there. But you see like the kind of like scabs on his back and his spine protruding. I thought that was really well done. But I guess I gotta ask you, even though I know the answer to this, do you have any negatives?
No. Why would I?
My only negatives would be my theater experience, and in the sense that
there's too much lighting in mine.
Yo, yeah.
That was it.
That's every other Alamo, but in terms of all of that, I think that this movie's phenomenal. I really, really loved it. What'd you think?
Oh, I loved it. If anything, I'm just trying to figure out. I would love to see all of his movies again. Yeah. And just to see like, all right, which one's my favorite? I think even The Witch. Like, I love The Witch. Yeah. But it might be my least favorite compared to all of them. But I want to watch The Lighthouse again. Yeah. And I want to watch The Lighthouse, and I love The Northman a lot as well. It's probably going to be one of those two being my top one.
I have given everything he's ever done 5 stars.
So it's hard. I'm like, I don't know.
I think it'd be
5
funny.
stars for this one, too.
I think it'd be funny, though. I think we'd be having a different conversation if they originally had who they wanted for the Thomas character. Harry Styles.
Dude, I'm glad. Dude, I haven't seen him in anything where I'm like, oh, yeah, I mean, he's a great actor. He's a good actor.
I've seen Don't Worry, Darling, and I think I like it more than most people, and that's that. I think the movie's just okay. Yeah. But
I think people's expectations of it, too, or like going in there because of the drama behind that movie. So that's what happened with and It Ends With Us.
No, that's a whole other thing, too.
Dude, there's so much things happening with that movie where I'm like, what is happening? I'm so confused now.
And you're like, okay, I haven't even seen it, but...
Dude, I haven't seen the movie, but I know more about the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Than the actual movie itself, right? But, overall, what would you give this?
5. Yeah. 5 out of 5, guys. Watch this, please. Yeah, it's great.
highly agree.
I just hope that he doesn't become so big that he starts to make other movies similar, like, that are not from his domain. You get what I'm saying?
I think that he won't ever branch out into something that he wouldn't like. I don't think he's gonna do a Marvel movie anytime soon.
I hope not.
But like, he's so in his own craft, essentially. I'm also giving this a 5 out of 5. I thought this was incredible, phenomenal, all of the words that you would call this. But Erwin, what's up next?
A complete unknown.
A complete unknown, which I'm really excited to talk about, actually.
Me too.
And then after that, our best and worst list of the year. I don't know which order I'm going to release all this in, but we'll see. But thank you guys so much for listening and watching. What are they going to do?
They're going to like, comment, and subscribe.
Please do. What did you think of Nosferatu?
Have you seen Nosferatu?
Have you seen Nosferatu?
Nosferatu?
2.
Nose for 2?
Nose for 2?
Nose for 2.
Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. We will see you next time.